Hi everybody and welcome to my kitchen. It's me, Manny from Manny's Make at Home, and today I'm going to show you to make a delicious and cheap and cheerful British classic. We're going to be making some bread and butter pudding with a delicious vanilla cinnamon sauce. Here's the good ingredients that we're going to need. Alright, the first step in your bread and butter pudding is to butter your bread. It's difficult to give you amounts because it's going to depend on the size pan that you're going to use. I'm going to use this baking dish, so I'll just keep an eye on how I'm getting on and see when I have enough to actually fill up my dish. It's also important that you use kind of like old or stale bread. If you're working with fresh bread, what you can do is pop it in the oven at a low heat for a couple of minutes for it to kind of dry out. This is also perfect to use the ends of your sandwich bread. Here you can use any type of bread. You could use Irish soda bread. If you don't know how to make that, click the link up there. You can use croissants, you could use brioche, literally anything. I am buttering quite liberally as well. This is where the butter in our bread and butter pudding comes from. For your bread also, you can cut it into little cubes and then put them into your dish. I would recommend you butter first because you don't want to be buttering the individual cubes. But what I like to do is cut mine into triangles like this and then place those into the baking dish. You could cut the edges of the bread off as well if you want, but totally necessary. Alright, all of my bread is now buttered. Traditionally, bread and butter pudding has raisins or sultanas in them. I do not like either in sweet things. I only tend to like them in savory things. In fact, I've used them in a previous recipe. If you want to check it out, it's my paparajena recipe, which will be linked up here. I'm going to use berries, but you can use whatever you want, whatever you have in the house. If you have pears, if you have apples, you can use those. If you're using apples in particular, I would recommend to use something like cinnamon and a bit of lemon in there to kind of give it that nice autumny flavor. But for now, I'm gonna prepare my dish. So first things first, I have to grease my baking dish a little bit. So I'm just putting a bit of butter in there and I'm just gonna do it with my fingers. I haven't mentioned what type of butter I'm using, but do I even have to? Let me know in the comments below if you know. Okay, now let's arrange our bread. I like to overlap them, but also invert the different layers. And I want to try and get some blueberries and raspberries in each layer. We can put some more over the top later, but I kind of like to see as well some of those berry flavors and juices going throughout the pudding itself. And it helps that we butter so much because the berries actually stick. Again, this is not really a science or anything like that, just do whatever way you feel is good. Okay, that's my dish all prepped. So all we have to do now is go and prepare a custard. All we want to do is get our eggs into a bowl. Typically to make a custard, you would only use the egg yolks, but again, we're in a budget. I don't want any waste, so you can do the whole egg. You can play around with the textures, maybe add 2 eggs and 1 egg yolk, or play around with it until you find the consistency you like. This works well for me. Next, I'm gonna add in my sugar and I'm gonna whisk it all together. Custard is such a versatile recipe. You can make it a little bit thicker and to make a creme pat, which you use to fill eclairs. And guess what? I've made a video for eclairs, so if you want to check that out, click the card. Also, a custard is essentially what eggnog is made from. If you want to check that recipe out, you know what to do. You want to just keep whisking until you get kind of like a bit of a frothy and pale mixture. You can do this with an electric whisk if you want, but by hand it only takes a couple of seconds. Alright, my eggs are done, so let me move them to the side and we'll start heating up our milk. I'm gonna put my hob on a medium to high heat and I'm gonna add in some milk and heavy cream. I prefer to have more cream than milk because it just makes a more kind of like luscious velvety custard and it just gives you a much better flavor in my opinion. So we just want to basically let this heat up nicely. I am going to stir it because milk is notorious for burning if you don't. So you don't really want to boil it or anything like that. You just kind of want to stop just before it starts boiling like mad. And now all I have to do is very carefully and slowly transfer my whole milk into my eggs. Just take a little bit of milk first and while continuously whisking, adding your milk. You're tempering the eggs this way to prevent them from scrambling. I'm going to go with the rest and whisk, whisk, whisk. At this point, you can also add in some vanilla paste for flavor. If you really wanted to, you could add in here some liquor as well. Maybe some rum or some brandy here would be lovely, but today I'm gonna keep it buzz free. Okay, and that's basically it. Now I can just pour my custard on top of my bread. I gotta use a ladle because I want to make sure that as much of the bread gets covered and everything gets nice and soaked in. Obviously, we're trying to keep kind of the presentation all neat and tidy, but this is not a recipe that is perfect or meticulous or anything like that. So at this point, I'm actually going to go and press in the bread a little bit. I really want to make sure that as much of it is getting or is soaking up that custard. That's where all the flavor is going to come from. That's why it's important that your bread is nice and dry so that it has space to take in all that extra moisture from the custard. And it's a good idea to actually let this soak, which is what I'm gonna do now, for as long as you can. 10 minutes at the bare minimum, but I'm gonna leave it for half an hour. In the meantime, I'm gonna preheat the oven to 180 degrees. Okay, it's been 30 minutes and you can see how the bread has soaked up a lot of that custard. Now everything looks beautifully soaked. I do have some extra blueberries and raspberries, which I'm gonna sprinkle over the top. And to give it a little bit of crunch, I'm gonna get some brown sugar and also sprinkle it over the top. Okay, and now this is ready for the oven. It's gonna bake for 30 minutes, then I'll have a look. And at that point, I may want to cover it with tin foil just to prevent over browning and then cook for another 20 minutes. And in the meantime, we're gonna make a delicious sauce to go with your bread and butter pudding. You do not have to do this step. Bread and butter pudding goes so well with just some whipped cream, just some regular cream, or vanilla ice cream, which is probably my favorite way to have it. But to boojie it up a little bit, I'm gonna make a nice vanilla sauce. This is very easy. It starts with making a roux. So I've got about 2 tablespoons of butter here. And once it's melted, I'm gonna go in with the same amount of flour. And mix that together. I want the flour to cook and for it to lose that raw flavor. Okay, next I'm gonna add in some brown sugar. And just for a bit of flavor, I'm gonna add a little bit of cinnamon as well. Just whisk that together. Okay, and once you're happy that it's all mixed together, I'm gonna go in with my milk. I'm using dark brown sugar because that's what I had at home. So my sauce is gonna have kind of like a rich color. If you want it to be a little bit lighter, you can use the blonde brown sugar. Now you're gonna whisk this until it starts to thicken up to your desired consistency, basically. That's pretty much ready, so I'm gonna turn the heat off. And at this point, I'm gonna add in my vanilla paste. And that's basically done. So let me check on my pudding and then we can take a slice. That looks amazing and it smells so good. I'm also gonna hit it with some powdered sugar on top. Don't worry if you see that your pudding deflates, that's supposed to happen. Let's cool it for 10 minutes and then we can cut ourselves a slice. Okay, I couldn't even wait the full 10 minutes. You can't even begin to imagine how good this smells. Let me go right into it. Okay, I'm gonna go and put a drizzle of my vanilla sauce on top as well. That was the perfect slice. Look at how amazing this looks. I am dying to taste this. Oh, let me dig right in. Oh, honey. It is amazing. Oh, everything is so beautiful. I love how the bottom layer is still kind of nice and soggy and soft. It almost jiggles when you shake it. And the top crispy bits are fantastic as well. That berry juice is trickled through all the bread slices, and the custard is sweet and the sauce is sweet. So everything kind of contrasts really well. It is so good. With the portions that I made, you could probably get 6 slices, but trust me, you're gonna want a slice this big. It is that good. Who would have thought a cheap and cheerful recipe to beat the January blues with just bread and butter as the main ingredients could turn out so good. I did make it a bit fancier, maybe by adding the berries and making the extra sauce, but it is just so good. It tastes amazing, it smells amazing. You and all your family are going to love it. Make sure that you give it a try. If you like this recipe, make sure you give me a big like and leave me a comment below what you thought of it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, it's free, and I will leave over here some other dessert recipes that you might enjoy. With that, I'll leave you for this video, and enjoy.